Well, yeah, great to be here at Welcome Wesleyan. I had that great opportunity to minister here already at the traditional service. You're amazing people. Do you know that? Yeah, you are? Yeah, absolutely you are. I have the amazing privilege of working with Mark Wilson. You know that guy? Yeah, you know him. And every Monday morning, he comes to Southern Wesleyan University and he says, Tapper, those people at Welcome Wesleyan are the absolute best people in the whole universe. And when he says that, he believes that. So yeah, you've made a really, really great impression on Mark Wilson. And I understand that you are in the midst of a pastoral transition as well. And I just want to say, just for a few moments, that I understand what you're going through. I've been in the same boat that you have, where you're in between pastors, and I know that you love Pastor Josh. He was and is an absolutely amazing pastor. And I'm sure that for some of you, it was a really, really tough transition for you to say goodbye to Pastor Josh. And I'm sure that you're excited about him thriving and doing really well in Virginia, but there's also that kind of hole in your heart as well as you're kind of in the midst of that transition. I have only been here for a couple of years now here in South Carolina, but I've had the awesome privilege of getting to know Pastor Josh, and so I get it. I get some of the feelings that you have. But I also want to encourage you this morning that God is on the throne. And there are amazing people all over this universe. And I know that perhaps that this pastoral shift has been a little tricky and a little bit difficult for you, but I want you to be, I want to encourage you and invite you to be excited about this new candidate that's coming in November. Sounds like he's an absolutely amazing person, and I'm sure that you trust the people that are involved in the hiring process as well. So be encouraged, you're amazing, and God is on the throne, and he's got a great plan for your future. If you have your Bibles this morning, why don't you turn to James chapter 1. That's where we're at this morning. I'm only going to read 3 verses. James chapter 1, verses 2, 3, and 4. And maybe you know this passage. It's a goodie. Verse 2. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds. Any of you know what trials are? Oh, yeah. Because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. That's a good word, perseverance. Verse 4, perseverance must finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Question for you this morning. Who is the most patient person that you know? Feedback. The most patient person you know. Husbands, I'm sure you'll say wives, of course. Who's the most patient person that you know? Feedback. Mom's the most patient. Why is mom most patient? She's got to put up with you. Okay. All right. Somebody else. Who's the most patient person you know? What's that? Not dad? Oh, okay. All right. Is dad here? He's not here right now? Okay. Somebody else. Grandma's patient. Why is grandma patient? Oh, that's good. Yeah, grandma takes time to talk to. Somebody else. Somebody over here. Teachers. Yeah, teachers. Oh, they're patient. Yeah, some of them are. Yeah. Some of them. Somebody in the middle. Patient person. Nobody? Pastors are patient. Yeah, pastors are patient. Yeah. Patient people. These are people who exude calm confidence under pressure. These are people who never seem all that rushed. They don't seem stressed. They're composed under pressure. They're patient people. They're not restless people. I want us this morning to think about patience as exemplified in the quality of slowness. The quality of slowness. And catch this, not slowness as a bad thing, not slowness as a disadvantage, but actually slowness as a quality, slowness as a virtue. We are not used to thinking like this. Patience is what we hope other people around us will have, right? It's what we presume upon people when we guilt check, arrive late for a meeting, right? Or an appointment. We presume that people will have patience because, well, they should. So let's test it out a little bit this morning, and let's ask, are we patient people? Are you a patient person? Are you a patient person? Colby Calloway, you're patient, I know. Taylor, you are too. Let's test it out. Think about what happens when you are in traffic. Huh? When you're in traffic, and it's like someone woke up on a Sunday morning and decided that they wanted to be the slowest driver in South Carolina right in front of you, right? Or how about the grocery lines? Where do you shop? Ingles? Is Ingles more or less where most of you shop? You shop at Ingles, yeah? Are you that person who considers it your objective at Ingles to win the race through the checkout line? Huh? Are you that person? Perhaps. Or maybe you're that person who I've observed before, who is the person that is observing someone doing a task, and you know that you could do that task like 10 times faster than the person that's actually doing it. Are you the person that just jumps right in and does that for the person that's taking a slower time? Are you that person? Or maybe this one perhaps hits home. Those four-way stop signs, and it's late at night, Derek, and you're stopped at that stop sign. Are you the one that just kind of blows the stop sign? You just slow down and you just gun it right through? If you could drive, okay, all right, yeah. I might have done that once or twice. You see, patience is the virtue that we hope everyone else around us has, but not us. Waiting, see, is brutal, huh? We don't like to wait. I've been at Welcome Wesleyan a few times now. I've had the awesome privilege of meeting some of you, and I even have the amazing privilege of having some of you in a classroom every day, which is absolutely amazing. I absolutely love it. I haven't had my family here yet, though. My whole family hasn't actually been to Welcome Wesleyan. There's a picture here of my family, I think, that will pop up, perhaps. You can kind of see my family there. There's Ethan and Andrew and Jaden and Abby. That's my wife, second from the right. And there's there's an adopted gal from SWU, Emily Hoyt. She's adopted because she's Canadian. And we adopt all Canadians into our family. I love these people. I absolutely love them. But as you may have kind of gathered from our picture there, it's taken some time to get where we actually are today. Right? And I don't mind telling you this morning that as it relates to that process, the road has not always been straight. It hasn't. Ethan, far left, was born Igor Storozhenko. Tough name for the playground. Igor Storozhenko. And on the day that Ethan was born, back here in the United States, completely unaware of Ethan's actual existence, my wife and I, we were secretly struggling. Like big time struggling, not little struggling, big time struggling. We were married, but for 3 years, we were quietly dealing with an obstacle that actually impacts more families than you might think, infertility. Did you know that 17% of couples today will deal with infertility in their marriage? That's a staggering number. Almost 2 in 10 will deal with that. That was us. We waited. We cried together. Mother's Day was always so hard for my wife and me too. God had pulled us together, had brought us together as a couple. We were ready to conceive, have a child, and for whatever reason, we were not able to do that. I can vividly remember one day going to a doctor's office, and the doctor told us that Christy would never ever conceive. And I can remember driving home that day in the car, and Christy and I didn't say a word to each other. We were silent. We were broken. Both of us were broken. And I can remember that Christy, she went quietly into the house, and I went out into our garage, and I can vividly remember pounding my fist on the workbench and physically shaking my fist at God and saying, "Why, God? Why? Why us? Why? Why would you do this? We're ready to have children. Why? Why?" I've never actually had God audibly speak to me. Maybe he has spoken audibly to you. But for me, in that little garage in Maine in 2000, whatever it was, a thought came to my mind. Adopt a child. Adopt a child. And so we did. But not right away. We had some more waiting to do. An 18-month process that we called our paper pregnancy. Igor, now Ethan, entered into our lives. A brave little fella who experienced some things in the first 2 years of his life in Ukraine that no child should ever experience or witness. Removed from a really complicated situation, protected by God in an orphanage with 300 children, waiting for a set of adoptive parents like so many kids do today around the world and even right here in Oconee County. And when we connected with this little dude, he looks happy there, doesn't he? Yeah, those are beds in the orphanage. See the numbers on the beds? Yeah. Brave little fella. When we connected with this little guy, our hearts overflowed with love. A few years later, we actually decided to adopt again. This time we looked to Africa. Excited to hear that you're headed to Sierra Leone. We headed to Ethiopia. Two Ethiopian boys who had been orphaned after their birth father left for the military and their mom died of tuberculosis. Their birth names were Desalan and Abu. They were dropped off at an Ethiopian transition home as orphans in 2009. No parents, no family, malnourished, and weak. Working with our American adoption agency, Christy and I, we waited again for all of that paper pregnancy adoption process to actually get approved. And when that paperwork was processed and our boys were officially adopted, my wife and I, we hopped on a plane and we got as quickly as we possibly could to Africa to connect with our boys. Some of you have adopted, and some of you are fostering or have fostered. And so you can probably remember what that first meeting with your child or your foster child was actually like. Nervous energy on both sides. So much immediate love for this 6-year-old and this 2-year-old. Again, struck by the amazing courage demonstrated by these boys. Such courage. Think about it. So much trust involved in accepting this pasty white Canadian as their father, right? These boys, I can remember my heart beating out of my chest in that picture, right? Shortly after this picture was taken, my wife and I, we were whisked off into a room with a nurse and a doctor. Something seemed wrong. You ever been in a meeting with a doctor where the doctor seems nervous? That's not usually a good sign, usually. Our oldest boy, Abu, had tested positive for tuberculosis, TB, presumably acquired when his mom acquired it and he watched his mom die of the disease. He acquired tuberculosis that way. So yes, the boys were legally ours. They were our sons legally, but under no circumstances could Abu actually hop on a plane and get to the United States and leave the country. In my mind, I can remember it was absolutely in a fog. I started rambling with this doctor. Well, what do we do? I'll never ever forget what this doctor said to me. She said, "Sir, take your boy, the youngest boy, Desalin, back to the United States. Go home and wait for my call. And when you fly back from Ethiopia, Abu, your oldest, will test negative for tuberculosis." "But how?" I said. She interrupted again. "Trust me, Abu will test negative for TB." Welcome, Wesleyan. I have lived a very charmed life. I have lived an advantaged life. But I can tell you this morning that I do not think I have ever done anything quite as hard as sit with a 6-year-old Ethiopian boy who's just been told that I'm his dad and tell him that we're taking his brother but not him. We'll be back. He'll have to wait and hold on to a promise that I'll be back. Abu waited. We waited. I received word back from that same doctor. I flew back to Ethiopia. Abu tested negative for tuberculosis. We flew home and we successfully treated him for active TB here in the United States. Today, I'm very proud of my family, but we're not world changers. We're very, very normal people, really imperfect, to be honest. Truthfully, we are a work in progress. And oftentimes that progress is slow. It's slow. And so let me ask an honest question this morning. Why is God so slow? Huh? Why is God so slow? Is it not true that waiting for God, waiting for contractors, waiting for bosses, waiting for doctors, all this waiting in life, does it not produce an amazing amount of questions and doubt inside of us? Think about it. Why is waiting so hard? Huh? Well, maybe it's because by comparison to people of other cultures and other generations, we're people on the move. I mean, welcome, Wesleyan. You're fast. You are fast. Regardless of your age, most of you have developed amazing skills in multitasking. You can cram things into a day that many people wouldn't even have dreamed about doing. You can learn different things, or you have learned different ways to be efficient and profoundly productive. You can drive, you can text. You shouldn't drive and text at the same time. You can carry on real and virtual conversations with multiple people at the very, very same time. 5 seconds is all it takes for you to check updates before returning to your task. I mean, you are agile people. You are on the move. You're so fast. But here, friends, is where some of our greatest strengths can become a weakness. Huh? You see, we run into trouble. We find ourselves in tricky spots. We get ourselves in a bind when we assume that anything worthwhile has to be acquired in a moment. Huh? And so this all got me thinking recently, why does God make us wait for things? Huh? I mean, why doesn't God just move faster? If God really has the power to do things and to change us and to change situations, well, why doesn't he just do it? In situations where you're praying right now for some sort of resolve, for change, would it not make more sense for God to just move faster than slower? But God doesn't seem to do this, does he? Why is God slow? Most of what God does is slow. Think about nature. Think about history. Think about how God works in your life. God doesn't often change things overnight, does he? He doesn't measure things in minutes or hours. Instead, he often measures things in months, in years, decades even, centuries. And we see it in our passage this morning as James speaks about mature perseverance there in verse 4. It's the psalmist who says, "Wait, I say, on the Lord. Wait patiently for me." It's Samuel, the prophet, saying, "Be still and see what God will do." And it all seems so easy when we read it, until we actually have to do it. This morning, I am fairly confident that everyone in this room has at least one thing that they're waiting for. That's an assumption that I bring to the table here this morning. You have at least one thing that you want God to do, but for reasons that you may be unsure about, you are in waiting mode. You've applied for a job, and you're waiting to hear back for a call. You're in the midst of something physically, and you're waiting for a doctor, or you're waiting for healing, or you're waiting for both. You're waiting for a messy situation in a relationship that you have to resolve. You're waiting for some sort of paperwork or process. Why is it taking so long, God? Listen, do you suppose that maybe, just maybe, it's possible that God is allowing those things, that thing in your life, that one thing that comes to mind that you're waiting for? Is it possible that God is allowing that situation to happen precisely to stretch you in the area of patience? Maybe? Maybe? Can I gently say this morning? Friends, if all that we learned from the obstacles in our life is how to pray our way out of them, then when it really comes down to it, maybe our relationship with God is ultimately based on what God can give us and what we can get from him. You with me still this morning? Good. James says here in his letter that there will be times in your life when you will go through many trials. You know what this is like. You know what a trial is. Maybe right now you are in the midst of a big trial, and it's a big thing. James says, there will be times when you will go through many trials, and in those trials, inevitably, friends, you will often find yourself in a place where God's perceived slowness is in full effect. And like me in that garage a few years ago, you may be shaking your fist at God, and you may be crying out, "Why? Why me? Why, God? Why now? Why will you not answer me? Why?" What does the Bible say about those trials? Look at it. Verse 2. Testing produces what? What's it say there? Testing produces what? Endurance. Endurance and maturity. I don't know most of your stories, but I'm guessing that some of them are pretty hard. They're really hard stories. And I'm guessing that many of you are persevering through those stories. And so maybe for some of you here this morning, maybe your takeaway is to simply be reminded to hang on. To hang on. That God's got this. That God's got this. Because it's precisely in those real life situations that your life story is taking shape. No, you may not realize it now. Truthfully, you may not for a little while, actually. But looking back, you may see how this situation is shaping your character, shaping your maturity, shaping your relationship with God. So hold on. Hold on. We're just about done. Let's think about that one thing that you're waiting for this morning. And here's the challenge. I've got mine. It's front and center in my life. Would you be willing to courageously join me this morning by committing to give that situation to God, to invite God, as painful as it may be, to have the space, to have the time that He needs to do the thing that He actually wants to do in us? Would you be willing to do that? That's my challenge this morning. Maybe perseverance and maturity or holiness or whatever it is that you want to call it is holding on 10 minutes longer than we normally would so that God can develop the perseverance in us that He wants to create in us. So what is that situation this morning that is preoccupying your mind? It's preoccupying your attention because you have to wait. Listen. Some of you need to hear this. God's storyline is right in the middle of that. But for now, you've got to wait. You've got to wait. You can't bake a cake faster by turning up the heat. It takes time. Some of you want your circumstances to change. You want people to change. You want your boss to change. You want whatever it is to change. You want to reach out and control that situation because that's what you're used to doing. Friends, slowness is a virtue. Wait. Wait.